Sony buying Kadokawa update. PlayStation 5 Pro gets a massive update, as well as a special project happening between AMD and Sony. And lastly, we'll be talking about how the PS5 Pro is actually selling very well. All that in today's video. Please like the video, subscribe to never miss a PlayStation update, and share the video to help grow our community. Now let's talk about this Kadokawa update. Sony has increased its shares in Kadokawa as both companies agree to a strategic capital and business alliance. In a press release, Sony claimed it plans to discuss specific initiatives for collaboration, such as initiatives to adapt Kadokawa's IP into live-action films and TV dramas globally, co-produce anime works, expand global distribution of Kadokawa anime works through the Sony Group, further expand publishing of Kadokawa games, and develop human resources to promote and expand virtual productions. Mind you, this isn't the acquisition that a lot of us thought it could have been, but still, they did increase their stake, making them the biggest holders at the moment. I've got a couple quotes here, one from the CEO of Kadokawa, Takeshi Natsuno, who says, in quotes, "We're very pleased to conclude this capital and business alliance agreement with Sony. This alliance is expected to not only further strengthen our IP creation capabilities, but also increase our IP media mix options with Sony's support for global expansion, allowing us to deliver our IP to more users around the world. We are confident that this will greatly contribute to maximizing the value of our IP and increasing our corporate value in the mid to long term. We intend to do our utmost to ensure that our collaborative efforts with Sony produce great results in the global market." And then Sony's president Hiroki Totoki said, in quotes, "Through this capital and business alliance, we will become the largest shareholder of Kadokawa, which consistently creates a wide variety of IP, including publications and books, such as light novels and comics, as well as games and anime. By combining Kadokawa's extensive IP and IP creation ecosystem with the strengths of Sony, which has promoted the global expansion of a wide range of entertainment, including anime and games, we plan to work closely together to realize Kadokawa's global media mix strategy aimed at maximizing the value of its IP and Sony's long-term vision, creative entertainment vision," end quote. So it sounds like Sony is going to leverage, what they bring to the table, which is helping them expand and do more in different categories of entertainment. And Sony's also going to use their IP and their IP creation systems, like where they make new IP, what seems pretty regularly. And if you include all of their sectors, yeah, that's pretty valuable. Now, they may not get the exclusives that some people thought they would get as far as video games go, but that may not be necessarily necessary or important in this case. I do think that they could still definitely work with FromSoft in an exclusive manner with some projects, but I don't think that that's what the intention here ever really was. They will leverage them. I can see them leveraging From Software if they need to or if it fits, but I don't think it's going to be a situation where they're like, nope, only PS5, no PC, no Xbox, unless, of course, the Xbox brand continues to decline to a point where developers aren't even bothering porting because the sales return is just not there. But that's a whole other story for another day. As far as this goes, let's see where this heads. I really don't think this changes much as far as FromSoft goes and what FromSoft does. I think things will stay pretty well the same as far as game production goes. On the anime side of things, I do think there will be other things happening, but we don't cover anime here. We cover video games, so I won't say much more about that. Next, we're talking about the big PS5 Pro breakdown that Mark Cerny did, and he dropped this video, and so many interviews came from it as well. And there was so much new information, as well as a collaborative effort with AMD, which we will talk about here. I do want to go over the things that were said, maybe not in full, but definitely enough to hit all the major points. The first focus was on the larger GPU present in the PlayStation 5 Pro, which features a unique AMD architecture that Sony was branding as a RDNA 2.x. This was a hybrid variant of RDNA 2 while featuring both custom and future RDNA versions present in RDNA 3 and beyond. This is combined with a GPU that featured 66% more workgroup processors, or WGP, compared to the graphics solution present in the existing PS5. Sony wanted to emphasize that they decided against fully upgrading the system architecture to RDNA 3 because they did not want to have two separate game packages or versions between the PlayStation 5's base and Pro models, which makes a lot of sense. You really don't want to make a situation where they have to do even more effort and resource management, I guess, to a degree, because you'd be creating two completely different versions, whereas you could just make one version and one version runs better on the Pro versus the base PS5. That's basically what you want to do in a case like this, similar to what Series S and Series X did, except for it came at a cost of Series S being too anemic or too weak, comparatively speaking, to the X. So in this case, the base PS5 is still capable of running these games, and then the Pro is just able to boost that, especially with the many different features that come with it. Secondly, Sony made a point of refuting the 33.5 teraflop number that was present in the lead up to the PS5 Pro's launch. Mark Cerny commented that it would have been a nice bonus to have twice the flops, but it wouldn't double the real-world performance and would have instead led to something he dubbed flopflation. He once again reiterated the increase from 18 workgroup processors or compute units to 30 WGPs, while also introducing 67% higher flops in terms of real-world gains. This meant upwards of a 45% improvement in performance. One example that he gave was how a frame taking 16 milliseconds to render on PS5 could instead be done in only 11 milliseconds on PS5 Pro, and those extra 5 milliseconds could instead be spent on adding ray tracing. These additional WGPs were primarily focused on ray calculations and divergence associated by improving the ease of use. Mark Cerny hoped that ray tracing would continue to be adopted at an increasing rate. So this was in an effort to give ray tracing more of a presence on the PS5 Pro, and I do think that it is effective to a degree. Now, there were a lot of conversations had in interviews as far as path tracing and ray tracing went. Mark Cerny didn't give a clear-cut answer. He said pretty much you would have to be able to well optimize your game for path tracing to be a thing. As far as ray tracing goes, obviously we're seeing better ray tracing with the PS5 Pro. All that to say that path tracing is possible. He didn't say it's impossible. He just said you would really have to basically optimize your stuff to be able to make it happen. So path tracing is a possibility on the PS5 Pro. So lastly, Sony made a point to touch on machine learning or AI present in the PlayStation 5 Pro architecture. By utilizing ML, it's possible to give games a graphical boost by having a game render fewer pixels and then using the PSSR neural network to fill in the gaps. This was bookended with the intent that this would not necessarily result in rendering a smaller resolution to begin with. By way of extrapolation and frame generation, the possibility exists to have PSSR insert frames between keyframes and reduce the choppiness that commonly seen in games running at a reduced frame rate. This type of adjusted rendering would not necessarily be the be-all, end-all in terms of graphical processing, should the possibility exist for developers to use the neural processing units to initially render a title at 540p or 720p, but ultimately comes down to the matrix math, as Cerny called it, and integer operations at play, namely the tops or trillions of integer operations per second. These tops are the real numbers that Sony wanted to focus on for rendering efficiency and the actual bandwidth of the PS5 Pro hardware. And Sony's just trying to explain why they went for the setup that they did and what we should be looking at. Because a big thing that people were saying online was, well, why are they rendering the title at 540p or 720p and then, using PSR to upscale it? That was something that was pushed the narrative that, oh, this is really a 540p or 720p. And I think it was a situation where a lot of these people who are talking about these things really don't understand it all. And to be quite honest, these are very, very complex discussions. A lot of people aren't going to understand them. And I honestly don't fully understand it myself. There's a lot of room to learn, which I'm willing to do, but that only happens through time. So there's a lot of great things that Sony implemented here as far as the tech goes in PS5 Pro. And I feel like we're not truly going to see how great it's going to be as far as consoles go until we see the newer titles come out. And I think that Ghost of Yotei will be a great starting point for us to see what the PS5 Pro can do. And I do think that third-party titles will be there as well if they choose to really utilize it, because that's what it comes down to. They have to be willing to utilize it to get that boost in performance and for us to notice that big difference with a PS5 Pro, even though there are performance advantages, even if they don't do anything, just with the fact that it's a better GPU. Now, Sony ended their presentation on the PlayStation 5 Pro Deep Dive by talking about the future potential for what the next PlayStation could achieve. So we're talking PS6 and on. And they have a unique collaboration with AMD that they are calling codename Amethyst. While much of the machine learning architecture on the PS5 Pro pushes the hardware to its limits, there is still a bottleneck at play in terms of system memory access. So this is an opportunity for growth and perhaps for them to achieve a fully fused network with PSSR and the overall potential for the growth with machine learning as a whole. So through the PS5 Pro, Mark Cerny and his team have developed a good understanding of what the current system architecture is capable of and what is to come in future consoles. While details are scarce compared to the rest of the PS5 Pro deep dive, Amethyst is the culmination of a unique collaboration with AMD to create a democratized library for machine learning built upon multiple generations of RDNA and Sony's research and development. Mark Cerny likened the potential of this collaboration to developing a sort of neural network focused on graphics for gaming. And this is where the future hardware architectures for both machine learning and AI would be integrated and allow developers to use these resources and perhaps even guide the technology into unanticipated directions. Sony made a key point that this collaboration would be developed in parallel between the two companies, with developers having the ability to draw from libraries rather than this being some matter of proprietary technology solely for Sony. So Amethyst is truly intended to bring broad machine learning across a variety of devices. It's not just for PlayStation devices. So we'll definitely see the efforts of this project stretch along, multiple places. But will it be super successful? Time will tell. Now, lastly, I want to talk to you guys about the PS5 Pro and how well it is selling. The PS5 Pro accounted for 19% of the PS5 sales in the US in November. So during November 2024, it accounted for a good chunk of the PS5 sales. And as far as the PS5 Pro launch goes, the dollar sales were higher than the PS4 Pro. And that obviously, you should take into account that it was a higher price tag, which naturally does have an impact. Circana's executive director and video game analyst or industry analyst, Matt Piscatella, posted it at their November 2024 US video game market highlights. In quotes, they say PlayStation 5 Pro accounted for 19% of total PlayStation 5 units sold in the month and 28% of dollars. Launch month dollar sales of PlayStation 5 Pro were more than 50% higher than the November 2016 launch month sales of PlayStation 4 Pro, while units were 12% lower. So quite interesting here. We've got a situation where more than 50% higher as far as dollar sales go, but the units were about 12% less in the same time frame. And so it just shows that even though they made this PS5 Pro that got a lot of pushback, especially with the price tag, a lot of people still went out and purchased this device, including myself. I bought a PS5 Pro for myself as well, which I've been happy with as of right now. And so it's interesting to see that sometimes what we see online with the people who are upset or, angry people with price tags and stuff, especially the content creators who, just constantly bash everything and anything that comes out of the industry, whether it be good, bad, doesn't matter. They're looking for the clicks. Were not the representation for how the general gamers felt, right? Like, clearly, if units are selling, then that's a good sign that people are still happy to spend the money on a PS5 Pro and are likely okay with the performance increase. So it's interesting to see that sometimes what we see online is not reflective of how people generally feel. But that is all I have for you guys in today's video. I'd love to hear your opinions on Sony's deal with Kadokawa, how you're feeling about the PS5 Pro after all this new information came out following the Mark Cerny video and the interviews he did across the industry. And lastly, how are you feeling about the PS5 Pro not selling too badly? And did you buy one? As always, if you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, subscribe to never miss a PlayStation update, and share the video to help grow our community. I thank you all for watching. Take care.